Economic conditions continue to worsen as the government projects the image that everything is okay in the economy and there's nothing to worry about. But today, I will expose the government statistics as fraud. There's a lot of content here. I'll get into it right away. The dollar soars across the board on robust U.S. jobs data. That's right, the U.S. dollar is doing extremely well right now in the recent past. Let's look at the chart right there at a CNBC. You can see out of the past few months, it is doing very well. Of course, this is relating one currency to another, the US dollar in relation to a basket of other currencies, the dollar index. So I'll get into that in a moment, but I just want to shed some light on the fact that the US dollar is doing well. And that means, of course, the US economy is doing well. Isn't that the case? Let's get into this right here out of the AP. Surge of hiring cuts U.S. jobless rate to 5.9%. Isn't that excellent? The U.S. jobless rate, the unemployment rate, is doing very well. At the same time, the US dollar is doing well. At the same time, the S&P, the Dow Jones, they're all doing well. So of course, that means that the US itself is doing well. That should be the case. And they said right here in this article, within the striking distance of what economists consider a healthy level. That's right. They are just shy of being a healthy economy, no recession in sight, everything is just fine, a perpetual boom, just like they said in 1929, right before the crash. In my book, I talked about paper dollars continuing to lose their value in relation to real goods. So at the top here, I say, most people don't measure their money in relation to real goods. And that's what I'm talking about when you have the dollar versus a basket of currencies. They're all being devalued because the central banks are printing up that currency in order to buy shares of the stock market. Do you see how this works? So then, when you think about how much stuff a $1 purchases now, 10 years ago, 100 years ago, the difference is very staggering when you think about it, because the paper money has lost its value, something that the Federal Reserve is obviously guilty of. Now let's get into the real statistics here. That's what the money GPS is all about. It's getting to the nitty-gritty. It's getting into the real details that the mainstream media simply are not going to cover, so we have to cover it here. And even the alternative news isn't really covering a lot of this, but undoubtedly that's what I'm going to do here. Look at the labor force participation rate, showing you that it is at decades low. And then when you look at the bottom chart, people not in the labor force, that is basically a continuous line upward. And the chart starts at the 1990 and goes up to the present day. You can see people not in the labor force is going up and up, yet you have this false idea, false projection given to us by the government that the unemployment rate is falling. The reason it's doing that is pretty obvious. The numbers are false. The numbers they always provide us with are false. The unemployment rate, it's a very simple technique. Simply by leaving those individuals who have been looking for work for longer than a year, just wiping them off the statistics. I'll get more into that in a moment. Record 56.7% participation rate for women, lowest since 1988. You can see that at the beginning of the chart, 1948, up until the point of basically the year 2000, it continued to rise. And then ever since that point, it has gone on a decline, and now it is at a decade's low. So what's happening here? It's no different than this, the main unemployment rate versus the U6 rate. It is showing you, yes, there is a decline in the unemployment rate. Of course, according to the U6, there's actually a much more accurate data, but it's showing you that the statistics are false. Look at that huge gap in between the two numbers. The U6 rate covers the unemployed, underemployed, and those who are not looking for work but want a job. That's right. If you have been looking for a job for 1 year, you are then wiped off the statistics. It doesn't make a single ounce of sense. Now, this is right out of the BLS, okay, right on their website, their information, where I get into this information at the bottom, talking about how teenagers are at a 20% unemployment rate right now. 20%. That is just a number that's basically present all across the world right now. You can see that particularly in Europe. Youth unemployment rate in Spain and other countries are at extremely high rates. This marks a very dangerous thing, because you wonder what's available for these individuals in the near future, and it doesn't look very promising. And what I wanted to talk about is, where's all the money going? Where is the economy going? Where is everything headed? Well, I can tell you it's not going into the real economy. Clearly, it's going into much worse usages right here. Look at the GAO talking about what they did with the so-called border security, and they were talking about the drone flights here. And there's a lot of information here, but the one that I wanted to get into is this, that 1,726 flight hours of these drones flying inland over the US. What exactly are they patrolling? I also wanted to mention, why are they patrolling the northern border towards Canada so heavily? Is there something that they really need to worry about? And they're not even doing a good job at that, because you saw James O'Keefe going, between Mexico and the United States, and going between Canada and the United States, getting in scot-free and dressed up in these silly outfits and so on and so forth, talking about how this border is clearly not secure, yet they're spending all the money. They're dropping bombs, all sorts of countries all across the world. They're taking the money, they're printing it, they're handing it out. They're even giving foreign aid to countries, multi-billion-dollar foreign aid, which then goes to nothing but the expansion of war. The statistics are incorrect, they're falsified, and this is undoubtedly the truth. If you agree with me, please give me a thumbs up. And I want to say to all of you, thank you for all the positive comments. I really appreciate that. I will continue to reply to all the comments, all the emails, and all the requests for the consultations. Thank you for those. And of course, do not forget to become an insider. The Insiders is where I give out all my best intel for free, and that is available at themoneygps.com. You scroll down to the bottom, fill in your email address, and you will get occasional emails from me with good, short, concise info.